Aaron.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron?
You done messed up, Aaron!
Aaron is here. Welcome back, everybody, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Okay, guys, we got to talk about Scientology official James Richardson. Let me just make sure I haven't totally blanked and said his name wrong. No, it's James Richardson. Scientology official James Richardson, who is Scientology's chief of security for their Celebrity Center International in Hollywood, and also Scientology's liaison to the LAPD. This is a Scientology official who married a 16-year-old child. And I think this story is worth highlighting because this is not an outlier. This is a reflection of Scientology's core beliefs that there is no such thing as a child. There's no such thing as children. That's why there's no guardrails in Scientology for children. There's no exceptions to the rules for children. There's no different procedures for children. There's no such concept as something being age appropriate in Scientology. You know, Scientology's so-called religious counseling procedures are, how do I want to say this? In Scientology, they have a word called auditing, and that is basically their word for their version of counseling. And to understand what happens in an auditing session, you'd have to compare it to a session with a psychiatrist, talk therapy. Although there's a lot of reasons why that comparison doesn't work. It's sort of the closest. If you want to explain something by comparing it to something you probably already understand, that would be sort of my best effort. My point in describing it that way is any Scientology auditing session deals with the sort of private details of your life that you would not otherwise want to talk about. You would feel blame, shame, or regret about it. In other words, rated R material, rated R or rated X material is the common subject matter of a Scientology auditing session. And yet in Scientology, young teenagers, as long as you're old enough to read and understand what L. Ron Hubbard wrote, 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, can train as professional Scientology auditors. Could you imagine showing up to your therapy session with a psychologist or a psychiatrist and they're 14, 15, 16 years old? This is what I mean when I say there's no guardrails in place. There's no different rules. There's no concept of age appropriateness in Scientology. And so someone like James Richardson, who's not just a Scientologist, he's not just a staff member, he's not just a Sea Organization member, he's the chief of security. And what that means, the fact that someone in that position of authority would marry a 16-year-old is not like, oh, this was an outlier and someone didn't know, that just, slid between the cracks or something like this. It's like, no. The fact that James Richardson, Scientology security chief and liaison to the LAPD, married a 16-year-old girl is an example of Scientology's core beliefs. And that's one of the reasons this is important to discuss. I want to start by showing you 2 Christmases ago, Streets LA out in Hollywood was out at in front of Scientology's Winter Wonderland setup and was interacting with the LAPD there when James Richardson showed up. So let's take a look at James Richardson for a little bit here. Check this out.
Why are we paying for this? Why are you here? What are you doing here? You're not you're not security. You're LAPD here doing private security for the Scientologists. That's disgusting. No, hey, nothing. You get on my face. You can't walk over me and you're gonna say, hey. You are here doing private security for the Scientology. If you come into my face, don't come and say, hey. Hey, are you? Merry Christmas. You.
Okay, so this is he paused on this. So James Richardson, Scientology Sea Org member and security chief for the Celebrity Center, is wearing a Clergy Council LAPD pin. We're going to come back to that in a moment. And even though it's not really the subject of this video, I want you to hear how James Richardson tries to deflect from what Streets is saying about how can Scientology pretend to celebrate Christmas when they don't believe in God or Jesus. And L. Ron Hubbard said that Jesus was actually an angry pedophile. Anyway, check it out. Oh, here we go.
Are you Hefner? Is that what you are?
No, he's a Scientologist and he supposedly got
God bless you guys and Happy New Year.
Why are your teeth so fucked up?
God bless
Brush
you
your
guys.
teeth, man. Scientology does not celebrate Christmas. Why don't you do this for L. Ron Hubbard Day?
Largest Christmas tree on Hollywood.
Yeah, but you don't celebrate Christmas. They don't recognize Christmas. Here, let's go to guys that are offering free security for the.
Yeah. Okay. So Streets goes on to give those officers quite an earful for essentially just doing free security for Scientology. Wasn't it interesting for James to deflect? Streets is saying Scientology doesn't celebrate Christmas. Now, Scientology does celebrate Christmas, but not as a religious holiday. They celebrate it as a fundraising opportunity. But James doesn't want to get into any of that. So he's like, we have the biggest Christmas tree on Hollywood Boulevard. What do you mean we don't celebrate Christmas? And guys, so a Scientology official pretending that Scientology believes in Jesus because they have the biggest Christmas tree on Hollywood Boulevard is the exact same thing as Scientology doing human trafficking awareness events while themselves being major human traffickers. It's pretty much the exact same thing, just trying to hide in plain sight. Okay, so Streets took that video. James Richardson made a guest appearance, and then Yashar Ali retweeted that video and had this to say about James Richardson. Yashar goes 15 seconds into this tape. You can see the guy come up to Streets LA and start to harass him. His name is James Richardson. He's the chief of security for Scientology's Celebrity Center International. He's one of the key liaisons to the LAPD for Scientology and to Talon Security. Talon is the private investigator and security firm that handles Scientology's most sensitive projects, including guarding Shelley Miscavige. Notice the pin on his lapel that says Clergy Council LAPD. These pins are often called courtesy pins. Law enforcement agencies give them out to supporters, including adults and kids. A vast majority of people don't actually put them on their lapel because it just looks silly, like you're a mall cop or something. Unsurprisingly, James put it on. The LAPD is in bed with an organization that has written policies requiring obstruction of justice, written policies that require Scientologists to lie to law enforcement in order to protect Scientology, written policies that make it a Scientology crime to cooperate with law enforcement, a crime that is punishable by a suppressive person declare. In other words, cooperating with law enforcement is a crime that is punishable by a suppressive person declare, which means that you will lose everything you've ever known in your life. The LAPD is well aware of these policies. They still publicly partner with Scientology. Okay, so there you go. The fact that the LAPD would publicly affiliate themselves and work with an organization that has as one of its core policies refusing to let members contact the police is mind-boggling. And we know why this happens. This happens because Scientology gives the LAPD a lot of money. Scientology will also help the LAPD solve crimes by using their vast installation of high-def ultra zoom cameras to and any footage of crimes, any footage that Scientology has, thanks to their cameras, of crimes committed in their vicinity, the vicinity of their buildings. The LAPD knows they can go to Scientology and ask for that footage to help them solve crimes, and Scientology will give it to them 100% of the time, unless the crime was committed by a Scientologist. Okay, so the LAPD chooses to ignore the fact that this cult prevents its own members from contacting the police, but will do community events with the police. I'm guessing the LAPD did not know that their liaison, James Richardson, married a 16-year-old girl. I want to talk about this subject of children getting married in the Sea Organization. They got married back in 1997. Here, let me show you the marriage certificate here. Okay, so this is the marriage certificate. By the way, they instead of getting married in Los Angeles, California, where at that time in 1997, if they had gone through the proper procedures in the state of California, this could have been a legal marriage in California, but instead they go to Las Vegas. We're going to talk about why. So here you can see they got married February 17th, 1997. James Earl Richardson and Melanie Kai Moniz. Okay. They were both Sea Org members at the time that they got married. Why do Scientology Sea Org minors go to Las Vegas to get married instead of in California. It's not because it would have been illegal in California. It's because in California, you actually have to go through certain procedures. There's a legal process that involves being interviewed by a judge. I believe at the time it would have involved having a conversation with a mental health professional so that the state can ascertain that you're not being trafficked, you're not being coerced, you're doing this of your own free will. Obviously, it's unusual for a 16-year-old to get married. And Scientology says, we don't want any state officials understanding who these kids are that are getting married, what these kids' living arrangements are, what their working arrangements are, what their family situation is, what their involvement in Scientology is. Because, for example, back in 1997, when Melanie Moniz was set to marry James Richardson, she would have been a 16-year-old girl who had not graduated from school, was not going to school, was not in the custody of her parents, was not living at home, was not living with any family members, was working 110 to 120 hours a week for no money. That sounds like human trafficking. That sounds like labor trafficking. Now you're talking about marrying her off to an adult. She was 16 years old. James Richardson was 22. All of a sudden, you're taking this child who's uneducated, not in school, not with her family, working full time, and now you're marrying her off to an adult. All of a sudden, that sounds like sex trafficking. Okay. And so at the time, Scientology would have all of its children who were getting married in the Sea Org, and instead of going through whatever the legal process would have been in Los Angeles, they just send them over to Las Vegas to get married there. Now, I think it's interesting to note that even this marriage today in Las Vegas, illegal. I'm told they changed the law in 2018. No longer could a 16-year-old like this get married in Las Vegas. Okay, so I want to talk about just very briefly what it means to be a security chief. In the real world, in corporate America, maybe being a security guard is not necessarily a high position on the corporate totem pole, but in Scientology it is. In Scientology, the security guard, a Sea Org member who is a security guard, much less the security chief, is actually higher in position, organizationally speaking, than every other Sea Org member who works in the organization that the security guard is posted to. So let's take in Hollywood, on L. Ron Hubbard Way, you've got a number of Sea Org organizations there. All of those organizations on L. Ron Hubbard Way are junior, lower level than the organization that the security guards belong to. So in Scientology, they basically have an HR division in each one of these organizations. They call it HCO, or the Hubbard Communications Office. It's Division 1. That's the division that handles recruitment, ethics, justice, and all that kind of stuff. But then and that's called HCO, or you could call it HR, but in Scientology, it's called HCO. All the security guards are posted in senior HCO. So it would be like senior HR. And all security guards are posted in senior HCO, not local HCO. And so James Richardson being a security chief, it's like you have to understand. And when it comes to the security chief is basically posted in senior HR. This is the organization most responsible for enforcing the rules of the organization, making sure personnel issues are dealt with correctly. Ethics, justice, discipline is enforced. The security chief is marrying a 16-year-old child. That's what I mean when I say this is an example of, this is a reflection of Scientology's core and firmly held beliefs, not just some sort of a weird outlier. This is who the LAPD is working with. This is the LAPD's go-to guy in Scientology, someone who married a child. It's absolutely incredible. Okay, there was a few examples of things. Okay, what is the LAPD Clergy Council? The LAPD Clergy Council is a community engagement initiative that connects local faith leaders with specific LAPD divisions. It is distinct from the LAPD Chaplain Corps, which provides counseling and support directly to police officers. The Clergy Council serves as a bridge between the police and the community by building relationships facilitating communication and promoting community and safety. Guys, safety of who? This is what I'm talking about. This is why it's so crazy. It's like the LAPD isn't there to keep Scientologists safe. Scientologists are prohibited from ever asking the LAPD for any help. It doesn't matter if it's rape. It doesn't matter if it's child molestation. If you're a Scientologist and a crime is committed against you or your children by another Scientologist, you are prohibited from going to the LAPD for help. This fact alone should cause the LAPD to completely sever official diplomatic, if you will, ties with Scientology. It's totally unbecoming. Let me show you some recent good times between James Richardson and the LAPD. This is an Instagram post by the LAPD West Bureau. Let's zoom in here. We've got James Richardson giving the big thumbs up on the left-hand side. You have other community of religious folks. There you have an LAPD officer. Let's see what's going on here, guys. Okay, the LAPD says LAPD Hollywood senior lead officers and community relations officer, along with the Hollywood Clergy Council. Okay, so Scientology's security chief who married a child is a part of the LAPD Hollywood Clergy Council. They participated in a prayer caravan. Maybe I'm extra sensitive to this guy as an ex-Scientologist. When I see people getting conned and tricked and falling for it, conned and tricked by Scientology, Scientologists don't pray. They don't believe in prayer. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe in heaven. They don't believe in hell. And guys, even as an ex-Scientologist, neither do I. I am not religious. I am not spiritual in any way. When I see science, and nor was I when I was in Scientology. When I see Scientology tricking people like this, participating in a prayer caravan, nothing could be more cringe to a Scientologist than participating in a prayer caravan. But there's nothing Scientology will not do or pretend to be in order to create allies in the police department. You have to wonder whether the police are truly falling for this or whether the police just go along with it because they get money from Scientology. I'm sure everyone's got an opinion on that. Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah. Everyone joined hands, guys. Everyone joined hands and prayed for the Hollywood community. They went to, I don't know how to say these names, DeLongpre Park, and they prayed with community members and paid tribute to senior lead officer Paul Jordan, who recently passed away. The caravan made more stops. They stopped at a preschool. Incredible. Wow. Okay, so let's see. There's another thing I wanted to show you here. Oh, yeah, this is sweet, guys. This is super sweet. A member of the LAPD. Oh, look, what a cute picture with child trafficker James Richardson. But guys, don't worry about the child trafficking, okay? They included the LAPD dog in a mural, and that's what really matters here. Thank you, Reverend James Richardson. He's a reverend now, guys. Apparently, Sea Org members are now identifying themselves as reverends. By the way, this is another thing, just for anyone new to the channel. Scientologists don't use those words in Scientology. They only pretend to use those words when they're dealing with the media, when they're dealing with the courts, and when they're doing things like this, dealing with the police. No Scientologist has ever, with a straight face, called another Scientologist reverend or minister. It's just not a thing. Thank you, Reverend James Richardson. As a symbol of appreciation to the LAPD, the community included police officer Siebert and canine officer Casey to the mural. The blue heart was painted blue as a touch of gratitude to law enforcement. I mean, that's just absolutely amazing. I mean, you have Scientology trafficking children, covering up rapes, covering up child abuse, engaging in labor trafficking. But guys, they put a dog in their mural. That's what really matters here. Okay, let's see. I had some other things. I had some notes that I wanted to make sure I did not that I covered. Did not forget. Yes. I covered this earlier. The fact that the LAPD would affiliate itself with an organization that prevents its own members from contacting the LAPD is absolutely mind-boggling. The fact that the LAPD would deal with a Scientology liaison who married a child is absolutely incredible. And the fact that the LAPD would be dealing with an organization and condoning the operations of an organization that doesn't believe in children while pretending that they exist to help keep people safe. Guys, what do I mean when I say Scientology doesn't believe in children? Scientology believes that we are all immortal spiritual beings that have been around for about 60 trillion years. And that because we have come to be trapped on planet Earth, which Scientology says is a prison planet, that we as beings, we've been around for 60 trillion years. Life is everywhere in the universe. There's multiple universes. They don't believe in a supreme being. They don't believe in, God created the earth or whatever. They believe that we created ourselves about 60 trillion years ago. Currently, we're imprisoned on planet Earth. And the fact that we live lifetime after lifetime in these physical meat bodies is part of the prison. It's almost like we're here stuck in the Matrix. The people who put us here in the prison, well, it partly had to do with Xenu, the galactic dictator of the Galactic Confederacy. That's a whole other can of worms. But the people who are currently keeping us imprisoned on this planet are the evil alien psychiatrists who run the implant stations that we are, as beings, programmed to report to whenever our body dies. So that's why Scientologists, they don't say dying or death. They say drop the body. So Scientology would say that when I drop this body, I, as a being, have already been electronically pre-programmed to teleport into the Between Lives implant station. That's where they're going to wipe my memory, and they're going to beam me back down to Earth, and I'm going to beam back down into a baby body, and I'm going to live a whole other lifetime with no memory of any of my previous lives or any of my previous lives here on Earth specifically as well. And so Scientology believes that if you have a 16-year-old girl, it's just the body that's 16 years old, not the being in the body. And that it's actually an invalidation of the being in the body who's 60 trillion years old to associate that being with the age of their physical body. That's what I mean. So when I say there's no such thing as a child, they don't believe that, children, they also don't believe that you have anything to do with your brain. They don't believe that you have anything to do with your body. This is just a meat sack. This is just a meat sack that's a temporary host for you, which is a 60 trillion year old being. And so that's why Scientology doesn't have any guardrails for children. There's no concept of something being age appropriate or age inappropriate in Scientology. And that's why it is not considered immoral for an adult, 20s, 30s, 40s, to marry a young teenager in Scientology. It's because they don't believe there's any such thing as children. And this, so take that core belief that all Scientologists have, and combine that with one of the most fundamental Scientology policies of you are never allowed to call the police for any reason whatsoever for any crime committed by another Scientologist. And I can tell you that in Scientology, when it's found that someone has had relations with an underage person, it's considered a big deal, not because it violates Scientology's own mores, but because it creates a legal liability for Scientology just because of the law. Scientology does recognize that if you break the law, you've created a liability for Scientology, and that's why it's a problem, but not because Scientology actually has a problem with it. And that is the accurate description of how Scientology thinks about these things. If it's wrong, it's only because it created a potential legal liability for Scientology, not because there's anything wrong with having relations with a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old, according to L. Ron Hubbard. Okay, guys, let's look at some star comments. Oh, by the way, super chats are turned off for this stream because instead I turned the stream into a fundraiser for the SPTV Foundation, which helps people who are leaving and escaping from Scientology. So yeah. All right. Concepts and legends. This is absolutely appalling. But first, coffee. Susie, this is absurd. Jojo, it's another abomination, again, by the beliefs of Scientology. Sharona, this was the first Christmas that Streets was out there, and I'm thinking because last year it was basically shut down. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what happens this year for Scientology's Winter Wonderland on Hollywood Boulevard. Sharona, that was, oh no, that's the same one. Okay, Jojo, it shows how easily even government agencies' representatives can be bought off. It is a travesty. Sharona says, so sad that so sad for that 16-year-old who gave up her choice to have a child if she wanted to at such a young age, to be married to such an older man. Susie says, is there a minimum age to join the Sea Org? There used to not be a minimum age. More recently, Scientology has implemented some guidelines, again, not because they've had any sort of a come to Jesus moment, if you will, that it's wrong and immoral, but to protect the organization legally. Presently, my understanding is that to join the Sea organization, you have to at least have a high school diploma. I'm not entirely clear right now whether the cutoff for Sea Org recruitment is 16 years old with a high school diploma, or whether they are enforcing some sort of a an 18-year-old standard. When I get more clarity on that, I'll be more clear on that myself. Okay, Jojo says, do the young girls have a choice? Even if they do, it is still wrong if they are so young. When you say they have a choice, so even back at that time, she would have had a choice who she wants to marry. Like there's no forced marriages in Scientology, if that's what you mean. Now, when you have a situation like this, where James is the security chief, there definitely is like a power differential there. So one might question, well, first of all, she's 16, right? So technically she doesn't have the ability to consent. Also, he is a very highly placed senior official in the Celebrity Center, the organization where she was working. So did she feel like she could say no? Highly questionable. But I think your question is, in Scientology, is she allowed to say no? And the answer is, in Scientology, yes, you'd be able to say, no, I don't want to marry you. You're gross. I'm going to, I'd rather marry someone else. Okay. Arkansas Flamingo. Didn't Claire and Mark Headley have to go to Vegas because she was underage? Or was that someone else? Yes, indeed. Yes. Many Sea Org members who live and work in Los Angeles have gone to Las Vegas to get married. And I think Claire and Mark were one example of that. Jennifer Arnold, it is unfortunate that nothing these idiots do surprises me anymore. Ductus Exemplo, as a fifth-generation ex-Mormon, underage marriage is heavily prevalent within the LDS communities. My family's disconnection from me for leaving was the roughest on me. So many parallels. Wow. Northern Girl, we already know the LAPD doesn't care about any of that, provided their pockets are being padded. Jennifer Arnold, are those beliefs known by regular Sea Org members that have not done the OT levels? Oh, absolutely. Everything I just said as being closely held core beliefs of Scientology, those are not confidential. The only thing confidential is specifically the Xenu, volcanoes, hydrogen bombs, body Thetan story. Everything else about the implant stations, 60 trillion years old, prison planet, no such thing as a child, that's known and understood by all Scientologists. Northern Girl, the IRS needs to start reading the doctrine before it gives anyone exemption. Absolutely. All right, guys, that is it for this one. More to come. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe